Even in our everyday vernacular, we talk about the relationship between our brain and our gut. We describe gut-wrenching experiences, and emotions can make us feel nauseous, or perhaps when we're nervous, we have butterflies in our stomach. These expressions are there for a reason, and that is because the gastrointestinal tract is exquisitely sensitive to emotions. Anger, anxiety, sadness, and elation can all trigger symptoms within our gut. The brain has a direct impact on our stomach and our intestines. Thinking about food can cause our stomach acids to get up and going and start moving. And this connection between the brain and the gut is also the connection between the gut and the brain. If your gut is upset, it can send signals to your brain. So intestinal distress can either be the cause of anxiety, stress, or depression, or may be resultant from anxiety, stress, and depression. Given how closely the gut and the brain interact, it is important that we study and learn all of the influences over the physiologic activity of our gut. We need to ensure that we are able not only to look out for signs that our gut may be in distress, such as looking out for symptoms of heartburn or abdominal cramps, but we can eat in a way that nourishes our gut, allowing it to create a better immune barrier, as well as be a piece of our puzzle that helps us to create mental resilience. Today, I am going to be talking with Dr. Emeran Mayer about the exquisite connection between the mind and the gut, as well as the gut and the immune system. Welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show, a podcast for people who deserve to be healthy, with honest, open, and enlightening conversations with doctors, thought leaders, creatives, and spiritual gurus. You'll walk away with simple and tangible tips and tricks that allow you to live your healthiest life so you can pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Dr. Emeran A. Mayer is a gastroenterologist, neuroscientist, and distinguished research professor in the Department of Medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine at the University of California, Los Angeles. He is the executive director of the G. Oppenheimer Center for Neurobiology of Stress and Resilience, also at UCLA. As one of the pioneers and leading researchers in the role of brain-gut interactions in our health, as well as our chronic diseases, specifically irritable bowel syndrome, his scientific contributions to basic and translational enteric neurobiology, with his wide-ranging applications in clinical GI diseases and disorders, is unparalleled. He has published more than 370 scientific papers, co-edited 3 books, and published the best-selling Mind-Gut Connection back in 2016. He is the recipient of the 2016 David McLean Award from the American Psychosomatic Society and the 2017 Ismar Boaz Medal from the German Society of Gastroenterology and Metabolic Disease. His most recent work, The Gut-Immune Connection, has focused on alterations in bidirectional communication within the brain and gut microbiome axis and their role in chronic inflammatory and functional diseases of the gut, including obesity and cognitive decline. Now, I know that was a mouthful, but in my conversation with Dr. Mayer today, we really break down how do we eat better so that we nourish our microbiome and reduce our risk for chronic low-grade inflammation that can be making us sick in myriad ways. Dr. Emeran Mayer, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Nice to be in the show, Lindsay, and thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
I think in the past few years, there has been an explosion of interest in all of the different ways that our gut health impacts our overall health. We think about the concept that all disease begins in the gut, and oftentimes we think of these diseases as being irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or a disease that particularly impacts the digestive system. But your works, the mind-gut connection, explores all of the different ways that our gut health can impact our mental health. And your newest book, The Gut Immune Connection, which is available for pre-order right now, explores the ways that chronic inflammation, especially low-grade inflammation, can impact our body as an entire organism, not just one distinct system. So talk to us and start us out discussing why our gut health is so important to the overall function of our body.
Very good question. The challenge is to squeeze that into a 5-minute answer, which, a topic I've written a whole book about. So we could start with one argument. One is that, billions of years back in evolution, when the first marine animals in the ocean were essentially made up of a floating digestive tube, tiny tube, nutrients came in one side, fecal material came out the other side, and there was a nerve net wrapped around it, this tube. And these creatures floated around the ocean and did really well. This design principle that the interaction between a gut-like structure and a nervous system-like structure has essentially been maintained throughout evolution up to our own guts. So we have an enteric nervous system, a little brain in our gut that is really the descendant of these nerve nets. So that's one argument. So the gut and the nervous system has always been in very close communication, uses the same messenger molecules, understands its language. So that's one argument. Another argument is, closer to today. If you talk to patients and listen to their stories, I would say in the great majority, and that's more in my female patients than in my male patients who are more sensitive, that they would have noticed a connection between what goes on in their gut feelings or their gut reactions, and their overall emotions. So people feel sad, they have a different feeling in their gut. People feel excited. It's a different gut sensation. Then there's probably the most exciting today, this is history and clinical experience, but the most exciting part of the story is today, where we now have research that has taught us that the gut is not just this digestive tube that it was a billion years ago, but it has 70% of our immune cells in it, sandwiched in between the layers of the gut, that it has the majority of our hormone-producing cells, endocrine cells, and that it has hundreds of millions of nerve cells, this descendant of the little brain of the gut in it. So whatever goes on in the gut has an interaction with all these other systems, and they send it across our body, particularly the immune system. So whatever is shaped and programmed in the gut, travels way, it doesn't stay in the gut, it travels way throughout the body and affects other organs. And so the most recent iteration of that is based on the immune system, that this phenomenon of this activation of the gut-based immune system, not by an infection, not by a pathogen, but by an imbalance of our gut microbiome or something in our food, or both, that can lead to a low-grade immune activation of the gut that we don't see. It's not an ulcer, we do an endoscopy. But if it's severe enough, it can spread throughout the body and affect the immune system in the liver, in the heart, but also in the brain. We've known for some time that diseases such as coronary disease or liver disease are responsive to things like low-dose aspirin. That it was never clear why that was the case. So now we know that one of the reasons is because the low-dose aspirin would contain this low-grade immune activation and therefore prevent the secondary damage to organs. Now, today, the majority of patients over 50 or 60 have that low-grade immune activation. So this is not something that a few people have. This has become an epidemic. Not everybody gets sick from it. A lot of people don't even know that they have it because it doesn't hurt. You can't see it. But it is becoming a big risk factor for pretty much all the chronic non-infectious diseases that we're dealing with today. It may even be a risk factor for severe COVID-19 infection and complications like the long COVID, in combination with other factors. And a big other factor is obviously the risk genes for other diseases. If you have a genetic vulnerability, a family history for Alzheimer's disease, that low-grade immune activation makes you much more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease yourself. And the same thing about cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, chronic liver disease, pretty much all the chronic diseases that we're suffering from. So this is so we're talking about the pandemic right now that's going on, and we have a vaccine now. We definitely don't have a vaccine against the epidemic that's been going on increasingly in the last 75 years of these chronic illnesses.
Chronic illnesses that are so common that people almost think that they are normal, and they're not normal, right?
It's really, it's been sort of the work of the pharmaceutical industry. So they have developed medications that can counteract, suppress these secondary damages to the organs, like the statins and the blood pressure pills and other heart pills that they have sort of lulled us in this situation, in this mindset. Well, the population is aging. That means we're going to have millions of more people with Alzheimer's disease. That's absolutely wrong. Aging and Alzheimer's disease are not the same thing. There's a lot of people that show, people into their hundreds have full mental capacity without damage. So it's, a lot of people don't think about it. Fewer people die from heart disease today, and fewer people die from chronic liver disease. But that doesn't mean that these diseases are not continuously increasing. So we've transformed the population, the aging population, into a chronic disease population, and think it's normal. And I should say, it's not just the elderly. Yes, for Alzheimer's, it's the elderly, but this phenomenon is now happening also in younger and younger age groups. So colon cancer, for example, we used to do colon cancer screening starting at age 50. Now it's down to 40. I predict it's going to go down to 30 if we don't. And it goes in parallel with these metabolic disturbances that we develop earlier and earlier in life, because children are obese and have metabolic syndrome. And So this is something that affects all age ranges in the population.